Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that this is indeed being streamed live on Facebook because I have logged into the Zoom account. So I guess it is live. So Jai Guru, good morning everyone. And since this is the first few days of the new year, a very blessed new year to all of you as well. My name is Mitesh, and I'm sure many of you are wondering what is it that I am doing here? You must be quite surprised to see me. And if it is of any help, I can definitely tell you that I am quite surprised to see me myself here as well. Master's Divine Instrument just literally plucked me out of the ether and put me here. And, I thought about it a lot. And 7 years back in 2014, when Master plucked me out of the ether to make me his disciple, I did not think of saying no at that point of time. So, how could I say no to this opportunity or privilege right now? Of course, after having said yes, I had to spend every minute last few days digesting the information, except the fact that I'm doing this, which brings me to the topic of today's satsang, which is one of Yogananda's line saying, "The minutes are more important than the years." And before we dive deeper into the subject, let's just take a moment and we will begin with a chant followed by a short meditation and an affirmation as we usually do. The chant is fairly simple. I want only thee, Lord, thee, only thee. 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 I want only thee, Let us close our eyes and sit upright now. Let's just take a moment to clearly visualize the words of this chant. I want only thee, Lord, thee, only thee, to integrate with our superconscious mind, and that no matter what difficulties or challenges we may face, we are constantly reminded of the great ones. Let us now pray together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahasaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, our beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, and saints of all religions, humbly we bow at thy feet. O great ones, help me to develop superconscious awareness so that I may feel thy presence, thy invisible hand guiding me at every step and every minute of my life. Help me also then, through thy presence, understand and attune to thy will, and give me the strength to fulfill thy will in whatever little way I can. Om. Let's just meditate now for a couple of minutes, keeping the gaze uplifted at the point between the eyebrows, thinking already that you have that superconscious awareness, using your concentration to the fullest to be in the moment. Let us now come out of the meditation, but keeping our eyes closed so that we can practice the affirmation for self-expansion together. I would request Abhiruchi or someone to just put in the words of the affirmation in the comment section. And at first, we will repeat the affirmation very loudly so that we are just able to get the attention of our conscious mind, which we know can be quite distracted sometimes. and then we will do it in a normal voice, in a whisper, and then mentally. So please repeat after me very loudly at first. I feel myself in the flowing brooks, in the flight of birds, in the raging wind upon the mountains, in the gentle dance of flowers in a breeze. Renouncing my little egoic self, I expand with my great soul self everywhere. Once more, I feel myself in the flowing brooks, in the flight of birds, in the raging wind upon the mountains, in the gentle dance of flowers in a breeze. Renouncing my little ego, I expand with my great soul self everywhere. With a normal voice now, I feel myself in the flowing brooks, in the flight of birds, in the raging wind upon the mountains, in the gentle dance of flowers in a breeze. Renouncing my little egoic self, I expand with my great soul self everywhere. Let's repeat in a whisper now so that we're able to take the meaning of this chant in our subconscious and make this a reality for ourselves. So let's really use our concentration and add a lot of power behind each word, even though we will do it in a whisper. I feel myself in the flowing brooks, in the flight of birds, in the raging wind upon the mountains, in the gentle dance of flowers in a breeze. Renouncing my little egoic self, I expand with my great soul self everywhere. And now at the end, let us only mentally repeat the affirmation without moving our lips or tongue, keeping our gaze uplifted at the point between the eyebrows, planting the thought in our superconscious mind. Mentally only, I feel myself in the flowing brooks, in the flight of birds, in the raging wind upon the mountains, in the gentle breeze of flowers, in the gentle dance of flowers in a breeze. Renouncing my little egoic self, I expand with my great soul self everywhere. And now, let's use the prayer for affirmation for this affirmation given by Swami Kriyananda. Beloved Spirit, in all that is, help me in my own nothingness to find myself one with all that is. Om. In a way, the topic for satsang, which is one of Yogananda's quote, the minutes are more important than the years. And somehow it's a coincidence, but the affirmation of self expansion makes a lot of sense for this topic today, because it is only when I'm able to become one with the now can I become one with everything. Can I become one with everything that there is? Can I sufficiently expand my consciousness large enough when I live minute by minute in the eternal now? And since it's still New Year's, I'm sure many of us have decided on a New Year's resolution for ourselves. Some of us were part of the workshop which was held last Sunday by Shurjo and Narayani, who helped us to nail down our resolutions in the categories of health, spirituality, work, as well as relationships. But the more I think about yearly resolutions, I think about why is it that only New Year resolutions are far more popular. Why don't we have anything like quarterly resolutions, monthly resolutions, weekly resolutions, let alone daily or minute by minute resolutions? And the more I think about it, I realize that somehow it's very easy to keep ourselves this vague goal of what we will do in the new year and push those things for the future. You know, नया साल है, I will meditate more. इस साल मैं energization ज़्यादा करूँगा. I will practice the Om technique more. I will do this more. I will do that more. And somehow, by making New Year resolution, it's very easy for me to push things in the future. There is the call of action to a resolution is somehow not very strong or immediate or urgent. And you know, which is very surprising because all our spiritual teachings, if you look at all the quotes of Yogananda, the topic for the satsang today, but many, many more, all the great masters have constantly emphasized on the importance of now versus a vague notion of achievement in the future, right? So minutes are more important than the years. Making small daily progress. Yogananda often spoke about making our meditations deeper and longer than the previous day. So can you imagine when you add up all the small daily progress, the sum total of that progress that you make will be so much bigger than what you make in a year's time or even a lifetime. Then there are other quotes such as, you know, live quietly in the moment and enjoy the beauty of it. The future will take care of itself. When motion ceases, God begins. Once again, emphasizing on the stillness of the current moment so that we can then begin to feel the presence of God in our lives. So, all the great spiritual teachings have always emphasized on the importance of now. And yet, human beings as we are, we always try and procrastinate things. We are never fully present in the moment. Even when we are facing the biggest adversity or a problem in our life, there is some part in us that tells us कि hopefully ये ठीक हो जाएगा and everything will be okay and fine, rather than making sure that we're giving all our energies to solving that problem right now. And I guess that's very natural because the biggest motivation of all human beings is maximizing happiness by expending the least amount of energy. So that has always been our motivation. We are very happy to function in an autopilot mode. We are very happy to function through the outward form of our past habits, surprisingly. And we are happy for that autopilot mode to take charge of our lives. And Yogananda said that every problem which is given to mankind, it is given to him because we should think of it as a religious duty imposed on us by God Himself, that we stand up to that problem and we solve that problem, right? And when I was young, probably about 10 years back, when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, there is one chapter, I don't quite remember which one, but Krishna says, at the time of your passing, at the time of your death, if you can think of me, that is, if you can think of Krishna, you can be one with me. And as a young adult, thinking of self-realization and always looking for shortcuts to success in life, somehow that idea of thinking about God at the end of my life really appealed and resonated with me a lot. But I've heard countless stories of anyone who is at the time of his passing, so many near-death experiences where, the pull of Maya is so strong that despite our best of intentions, thinking that we will remember God at the end of our life, what invariably happens is that our subconscious throws up, it brings out all the attachments that we have. We think about our family, we think about our spouse, we think about our children, our parents, who will take care of them when we go. Many of us even think about what will we do with the millions of dollars we want, of course, if you earn that kind of money. A lot of us actually think about all the attachments that bind us, even if we don't like to think about it, because the grip of Maya is so strong. Even Narad could not escape from the grip of Maya. I'm sure most of you have heard about the story about Narada and Vishnu. I will go through it once again because it's very, very contextual to the topic at hand. So, Narad, being an ardent devotee of Vishnu, he mentioned to Vishnu that, Lord, I can't understand when anybody can feel your presence in their life, how can they go back to the normal worldly ways of living? And Vishnu did not give him a straight answer. Vishnu instead asked Narad, let's go for a walk. So they both go out for a walk, and very soon they find themselves in a desert. It's very hot, they feel thirsty, and Vishnu requests Narad, could you go fetch me a glass of water from the village? So Narad goes to the nearest house that he has access to in the village. He knocks on the door, and lo and behold, there is a beautiful young maiden who opens the door. And Narad feels this instant, strong, karmic past life connection with that young maiden. And she is very sweet. Her parents are very sweet. They both invite him over. They realize that he has been through a lot, so they ask him to sit. They serve him some food and water because he's very very tired. And they're very nice. They understand his predicament. And what happens is that Narad falls in love with this woman. They marry each other. 1 year later, they have a baby. 3 years later, they have one more baby, and very soon they have three children. They start their own business. Narad is very, very happy. And slowly, 12 years passes, and there is a torrential downpour in the village. It sweeps away their house. So Narad, fled for his life, his family's life. He has his wife in one hand as he's running. He's got his eldest baby on the right hand, and he's got two of his young babies on his shoulder. And then there is this outpour of water, and one of the babies, unfortunately, is washed away with the water. Narad tries to save him, and again, unfortunately, in the process, he loses both the babies on his shoulder. His wife is stricken with grief at that moment. She lets herself go, and Narad thinks to himself, there is nothing worth living in this life anymore. So he closes his eyes, and he also lets himself be swept away by the water. And later he opens his eyes and he can hear someone saying, Narad, Narad, what happened? And Vishnu is speaking to Narad saying, I sent you half an hour back to get me a glass of water. Where were you, Narad? So you can imagine, if Narad cannot escape from the grip of Maya, I think it's reasonably safe for us to assume that we have a lot of work to do in this regard, right? Now, let's think of some of the ways in which we can live more in the minute so that we don't lose the larger picture. How can we focus on the minute by minute? How can we focus on the task which we are facing at this moment, right? And the first thing which is very important to note is take one step at a time, right? If you have a very large goal in front of you which seems insurmountable to conquer, it's important that we break that large goal into small pieces and then attend to it one by one. When we were a child, we always used to do this. When a toddler learns to walk, he takes one step at a time. When we learn to cycle, when we learn to drive a car, we first figure out how to navigate the car through the steering. Then we figure out how to use the accelerator, the brake. We spend a lot of time in trying to figure out the clutch. And of course, needless to mention, there is always a mentor or a guide who is helping us to do so. But somehow, as adults, we forget this whole process of trying to break down our goals into smaller pieces. So that is the most important thing. When Yogananda was a boy, he had a vision of being at a very very crowded marketplace at the foothills of the Himalayas, and the marketplace was very busy, very crowded. There were shopkeepers and shoppers screaming at the top of their voice, haggling. It was scorching heat, and every now and then, Master would look at somebody else looking at a distant mountain peak up there, and then they would think about, oh, you know, they would look at the peak with wishful eyes, wishing that they could be there, but very soon they would just resign themselves to their current fate and think that this is not for them. So Master also decides to look up at what is it that everybody is looking at, and he sees this beautiful mountain top with a very very beautiful garden with lots of wonderful flowers, and exactly the kind of place that we would want to be. and definitely away from the not so uplifting, crowded streets or the restlessness of our mind. And for a second, Master in that vision felt that this is too much for him to conquer it as well. But then instantly he reminded himself that if I think about going to the top of that mountain in one leap, definitely it's not going to be possible. But if I put only one foot in front of the other, I shall certainly able to conquer this journey. So that is an attitude with which we need to approach every challenging situation in our life. Take one step at a time. The second thing which is very, very important, surprise, surprise, is concentration. Now, concentration is important not just from the perspective of our spiritual practices, but for everything in life, especially for success in work as well as in our relationships. And concentration is especially for a devotee who has decided that union with God is his ultimate goal in life. There cannot be anything which is more important than concentration. And that is very much the reason why all the spiritual practices which have been handed out to us are to do first with the breath. You know, there are very few spiritual practices that will talk about, imagine this future where we are dancing with the gods, or we are spending quality time in heaven, or we are sharing the kingdom of throne with God. That will come later. But what they emphasize on are things like Hongsa technique, right? Living by the breath, living by the minute. They focus on things like the Kriya technique. For all the people who have taken the Kriya technique, we all know that when we give our 100% to each Kriya, that is when we derive the most joy out of it, right? So, not just in our path, but any spiritual practice always emphasizes on the breath. And when I think of concentration, one image that comes to my mind is, whenever we are looking at any image on our smartphone, any picture on our smartphone, and we want to zoom into any particular, corner or area of that picture, what we do is we use our fingers and we expand that image and we zoom into that particular part of the picture. So we are expanding that image to really focus on what is it that we want to focus on. So, for any current situation that we are facing in our lives, if we can completely zoom in by expanding our consciousness to this very moment, to this moment of now, if we can be 100% in the now, we are 0% in the past and we are 0% in the future. We are completely in the now, and the concept of time then does not exist for us. And no wonder then, when we are so engrossed in watching a movie or reading a book, or even if we are dealing with a problem where we are giving our full attention, we are not conscious of time at all. Hours and hours can pass by, but we are not conscious of the time. So once again, how is this relevant to a devotee who wants to expand his consciousness to infinity? It is relevant because only when you are one with the now and you're operating in a zone where there is no concept of time, only then can you be one with everything. So let's take a small example. If I think of myself as this little physical being, which of course I am, and I'm in Mumbai, and I want to travel to New York, the shortest distance for me, if I take a direct flight, it is going to take me 24 hours to go from Mumbai to New York. Now think of someone who can cover this entire journey in exactly 0 seconds. Okay? A little hard to think, right? But what if we were not this small physical self? What if our physical self was so large and so gigantic that we had one of our legs in Mumbai and another leg in New York, which essentially means we are in Mumbai and New York and everywhere simultaneously. So I'm in both places at the same time, and therefore the concept of time for this enlarged physical self does not exist. So what I'm trying to share, my friends, is for The moment I try to go deep within a situation, the moment I'm trying to get myself into a zone where time does not exist, I am automatically expanding my consciousness with infinity. My consciousness is also everywhere, and that is the reason why I feel that I am in a timeless zone. And all of this is done through the power of concentration. And saints, if you look at the life of any saints, they have exercised this state of super conscious awareness at every moment of their lives, right? No, I mean, imagine Swami Kriyananda, the reason why he used to say is that we should not just think of every year as a reincarnation, but every breath is like a reincarnation. And it's just so intimidating to even think of the amount of energy it would take to give so much energy at every moment. But the good news is that if saints can do it, so can we. Unfortunately, whenever we use the term saint, there is a negative connotation that वो तो भगवान है, वो तो saint है, it comes very naturally to them, वो तो कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. But nothing can be further from the truth. Saints have come into our life to show us the way. They have gone through all the challenge and tribulations through their journey of self-realization as much as we are expected to go through. You know, there was a movie which I saw recently which was based on the life of this American TV journalist. His name is Fred Rogers. And, he was very good with children, and he would spread happiness and goodness wherever he would go. And many people used to call him a saint. In one of the interviews, his wife said that it's very unfair for any one of you to call him a saint because he practices on sharing happiness every single day. It takes a lot of practice. When he gets angry at home, he takes out all his anger on the piano so that he doesn't have to take out his frustration on anyone else. The name of the movie is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I highly recommend that. Um, so, if the saints can do it, all of us have the power within us of concentration to be able to achieve whatever goal we set for ourselves. We have in fact done this so many times we just don't realize. I mean, think of the last time you walked up to the altar to take the blessings through Master's divine instruments, right? Just think about of the feeling when they place their finger in blessing at the point between your eyebrows. At least for me, I don't know about you, at least for me, the expectation itself is so much that I find myself completely in a sort of an eternal zone. And by doing so, we automatically give our 25% of the equation because our 25% is to be there at that time, giving our best, even if it is to only receive a blessing, and therefore it is only natural so that through the divine instrument of Master, the 75% of Guru as well as God's grace comes to us. And when it comes to us, don't we just feel like being in that moment? We just don't feel like going anywhere else. And I always hope that that moment can last till eternity. But the point which I'm trying to make is that we have brought our share to that equation. We have that power of concentration, which we can of course develop through all the wonderful techniques that has been given to us by these line of gurus. Now, moving on from concentration, concentration is important, but what is more important is that we practice concentration with a sense of non-attachment. Because what tends to happen, friends, is that whenever we give a lot of energy to any situation, we just get stuck in that. You know, हमने इतना मेहनत किया है, now अब मेरे को I want to be attached to this situation only. So even if there is some other glaring or a bigger problem which has come into our life, it's very difficult for us to extricate ourselves from whatever it is that we have given our energy to. And imagine when Yukteswar ji gave the first experience of samadhi to Master, and when Master wrote pages and pages of that blissful experience in the autobiography of a yogi, what I was most shocked about is that the moment um, Yukteswar ji got Master out of the experience, he told him, "Let us now sweep the floor." Can you imagine the stark contrast? Can you imagine descending from that level and coming to doing something as mundane as that? But that is exactly what non attachment is. And for most of us, we come to the ashram, we do some long meditations, we are very happy, we feel blissful. We go about telling each other how powerful the meditation has been. And then suddenly, at least for me, I get a call from office. I pick up the phone and I'm like, हाँ तुमको मैंने बोला था ना ऐसे करना है. Why do you keep calling me? I am so attached to the concept of whatever little bliss or happiness I felt in the meditation. I refused to let go of that. And imagine if I behave like the way I just behave for most part of our lives, and if I add the sum total of all those minutes, what is the picture that I will review at the end? Is it going to be the bliss which I experienced during that small meditation? Or is it going to be the way I behaved and interacted with the world at large? Right? So, concentration with non attachment is the key. And if we think that developing the power of concentration and non attachment is very, very difficult, let us think about what Swami Kriyananda said about acting with the right consciousness. And I would just like to share a screen and share the quote with you because I think it's just too beautiful for me to even try to explain it. So let me just share the screen. So this is what Swami Kriyananda said. It's important to understand that unless you act with the right consciousness, your dharma won't take you any closer to God. You may get good karma, but you won't get divine freedom. The consciousness with which you do your work is the most important aspect of all, not the outward form. For devotees, the purpose of all work is to put into action those divine qualities you are developing inside: kindness, joy, love, peace, and calmness. If, when working, and this is where it becomes very interesting, you allow yourself to become frazzled and to think, oh, I only have a little time to get this done, I'll think about God later, then there is something wrong with the way you're doing it. While working, you should always be reinforcing those feelings of peace, calmness, love, and joy. Your only responsibility in this drama is to express that divine inspiration as perfectly as possible. So, if everything else seems very, very difficult, let us remind ourselves that our only, we paint this grand picture of our little egoic selves, but our only purpose in this life is to try and demonstrate and express those divine qualities in every interaction that we can possibly have. You know, all of us have been on the receiving end when Narayani greets us or hugs us when we come to the ashram, and at that time, at that moment, nothing or no one is more important for Narayani than expressing her warmth and love for us. And that is precisely the reason why we can feel Swamiji's vibration in her. And whenever we come to the ashram, no matter how many people are there, if we walk up to Shurjo and ask him a question, no matter how many other important things he has to do or how many people he may need to attend to, he will spend hours helping you with your question, right? And I remember when I had gone to one of Jyotish and Devi's satsang in Churchgate, I had taken one of my friends along. And at the end of that satsang, my friend walked up to them and said, I really enjoyed your discourse. And both Jyotish and Devi looked at him in his eyes and said, thank you for coming. And the way they said that, it caused a shift in me because there was absolute sincerity in their expressing their appreciation for my friend turning up for the satsang. So we have so many examples of saints and acharyas and Nayaswamis within Ananda who demonstrate this divine quality of expressing love in every interaction, and that is perhaps the most important thing as well. Think about the life of Jesus Christ. You know, it's easy, especially for some guys like me, to get caught up in all the miracles that he performed, time travel, his resurrection. But the underlying theme with which he would go and help people is because his father, God, loved everyone and he expressed that love through Christ. And only when his father wanted him to do something and express those qualities, he would do so. I mean, we know about the ascending ages, right? In future, all of us will be in a zone where time travel and miracles and being at multiple places at the same time will be very common. And then what is it? The only reality that will bind us together at that time, that will unite us together, is love itself and nothing else. And to conclude on this discussion, I just want to quickly go through, the workshop that happened last week. And at one point, Shurjo asked each one of us to visualize what is it that we would like to be remembered when we die. What inscription or eulogy would we like at that point of time? And I gave this some thought, and I realized, what if each one of us, all of us, we are one spiritual family, what if each one of us could think of being remembered as a disciple of the greatest master that there ever is? That is exactly how Swami Kriyananda modeled his life, as we all know. So, even if everything else is too much for me, the very fact that I can keep my end goal as being remembered as a disciple of a great master, hopefully that itself will be the raft of delusion that can carry me over to the goal of self realization, the goal of yoga, which I'm sure is what all of us are seeking together, right? So, minute by minute, let us be super consciously aware, not subconsciously, let's be super consciously aware of our every thought, word, action, so that that is the end goal that we can all strive towards. And before we end, I just want all of us to just take a moment, and I'm going to share my screen once again. I want all of us to look at this image. There is this beautiful artwork which was created by Ragini a few years back. Let us read this wonderful quote by Master. Live quietly in the moment and see the beauty of all before you. The future will take care of itself. Let's close our eyes now just for a brief interval. Think about the beauty of all the blessings that we have at this very moment. Let's feel the presence of the divine. Let's visualize His beauty in all forms. And as we feel His blessing more and more, let us be instruments of the divine in sharing these blessings with all our brothers and sisters in not just Ananda, but throughout India and the world who are suffering with the disease of COVID, whether it's physical, mental, or any other form of suffering. Visualizing this entire planet at the point between the eyebrows, seeing ourselves large enough to be one with this planet and sharing this light with one and all. So let's rub our hands together. Continue to hold that image at the point between the eyebrows. Lift up both your hands. Let's chant Om 3 times. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you very much. Jai Guru. And I hope all of you have a fabulous Sunday and we are able to practice as much concentration, as much as self-expansion that we can throughout the week, starting from this very moment. Jai Guru.